the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, and welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Today, I am across the ocean. I am in the country of France. I am talking to a beautiful lady by the name of Katie, who was diagnosed with MS in 2019, and then she was also diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and she wanted to come on and talk about her journey. So please welcome to the podcast, Katie. How are you doing today, Katie?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I also want to say Katie is originally from the UK and now she lives in France. I forgot to say that on my original introduction to you, Katie, but I really appreciate you coming on to talk about your journey. Can you kind of take us through your path on your diagnosis, where you were in life, in 2019, what was going on, and then all the symptoms that you were having that kind of threw a red flag up that something wasn't right and you went to see a doctor to try to get it figured out?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, my first symptom was back in 2015, which was numbness in my right arm and hand. And in 2015, also, I was in the time of moving home. So that's when I noticed it. And then obviously from there, pins and needles started in my hands, my feet, my legs. The numbness was getting worse, lots of migraines I was getting, and also lots of chest infections, which wasn't going with one lot of antibiotics.
Hmm.
So I went to my doctor and explained my symptoms, and he actually said it was carpal tunnel. So I had a small operation to fix that. After that operation, in 2016, my symptoms worsened with the numbness and the pins and needles in my right side and my right hand. So then I was obviously also had another condition, which was endometriosis and adenomyosis.
Hmm.
So they wanted to get me sorted out for that. And so I had to have a full hysterectomy in January 2019. And then after I was recovering for that, I was outside in the garden and my legs just give away. So I actually just fell to the ground.
Like,
I didn't know why. So my partner picked me up and got me inside. And that's when I knew that there was a more serious issue going on with inside my body.
wow. Were you going to doctors in the meantime? Like, and I mean, I know you said you got the carpal tunnel surgery, but I mean, were any of them just like maybe thinking maybe they should run an MRI just to see if there was anything going on neurologically with you, or no?
Yes, when I went after, obviously I fell and my hysterectomy was done, I did go back to my doctor and said, like, these symptoms are persisting and getting obviously 10 times worse than they were. And he sent me straight for an MRI on my spine. And then that's when they called me back in after my MRI was done into the room to say that they had found lesions in the back of my neck.
Wow. And is that and then they gave you the official diagnosis that you had your MS?
It was a, it was quite a quick procedure to get diagnosed, but obviously they requested for a brain MRI the week later,
Mm-hmm.
as an emergency, and I got the results that day. I was called in and they found some lesions on my brain. Not many, just a couple, but obviously they said you need to see a neurologist very quickly. So that's when I was booked in to see my neurologist, and then he asked me to have a spinal tap done at the beginning of July. So I was taken in 4 days with steroids and then obviously my spinal tap. And then I got my results the end of July, the 30th of July, and it was confirmed that I had multiple sclerosis.
Wow. How did that the words multiple sclerosis, how did you understand them? I know, I mean, when I was 27 years old and I got told that I got MS, I didn't really even know what it was. I mean, I heard of multiple sclerosis, but I didn't understand it. How did you comprehend that when you were told MS? Did you understand what that disease was, that it was chronic and never going away?
Yes, I did, because when I was very young, my mum's neighbour's son had it, and all I knew him to be was in a wheelchair. And so I knew a little about MS, but I didn't know enough about it. But yeah, it was a shock at the time because when I was diagnosed, he just turned around and said to me, yes, you've got MS, but you can't die from it or end up in a wheelchair. And he found it quite funny.
Oh, he found that funny. Okay.
Yeah. So then I was passed down to his colleague who he works with, which was a lady neurologist, because he said he doesn't know enough about MS to continue to proceed with me.
Your doctor said that he didn't know enough about MS,
Yes.
and this was a neurologist.
Yes, correct.
Wow, wow, wow! That's just amazing that you're being told by a neurologist that he doesn't know enough about MS.
Yes.
How did the diagnosis affect you mentally? I mean, you had a little bit of a knowledge, and you knew that you had a neighbor that was in a wheelchair. I mean, how did you process it mentally?
I think when you're diagnosed with something like that, as a lot of us do, we just go into denial mode, and that's what I did. I chose not to accept it, and I tried to carry on as normal. Um, but at the same time, I was struggling with a lot of anger and why me in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'd already gone through a hysterectomy 6 months previously.
Yeah.
I would like to have had more children and I couldn't. So I was struggling a lot mentally after I sort of had time to process the diagnosis. And then come the fear.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a life-changing diagnosis. I know when I got diagnosed when I was 27, Katie, the only thing that I really knew, and I don't know if you remember Annette Funicello, an old actress in America, and she was diagnosed with MS and she was in a wheelchair, and that's all I really knew about it in 1997. And I was like, holy shit, this is going to be me. And but and I went through that period, but I finally said, you know what, screw this. If MS is going to take me, I'm going to go down with a fight. And I kind of just got an attitude. And I know that, like, from when I met you on TikTok and just learning more about you, you kind of have that attitude too. That it's MS, but I'm gonna push on. And how did you find the strength to, like, and the motivation to just keep fighting and accept this disease?
I think for me, my strength come from my children and my partner, now my husband. I have no choice but to fight. I need to be here for them,
Mm.
and I want to be here for them, and I want to live the life that I want to live the best way that I can. So that's where I found my strength to fight, and then I chose to take myself to social media to spread awareness and help others, and also help my mental health by talking to others that understand what I'm going through.
Amen. It is so, it is a mental health release, just talking to people about this disease and connecting with people from all over the world. I started doing this podcast a few months ago, and it is just awesome talking to people like yourself about your journey. And I know that after your diagnosis, 2 years later, you also got diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I had one other guest on from England that was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and she, talked about her journey. But that is just another really interesting chronic disease that people just don't understand. And I know there's a lot of pain involved in that disease, and as well with the MS, and there's just such a correlation with those two diseases. And I really wanted to talk to you about that diagnosis too. So can you please tell us about the fibro?
Yeah, sure. I think when I got diagnosed with MS, I wasn't in the pain that I'm in now. The pain progressively got worse within my body from top to bottom, which was after my first vaccine of COVID-19. And I kept mentioning it every year. I went back to my neurologist and kept saying, like, I'm in so much pain, like, I need something to help me because it's just getting worse, worse, worse.
Mhm.
So then I was directed to a rheumatologist who officially diagnosed me with fibromyalgia. And they put me on, I was already on pregabalin at the time. So they just upped the dosage of the pregabalin for me for the pain.
Mhm.
But that wasn't agreeing with me very well. I was getting a lot of side effects from this medication. I then transferred to a different rheumatologist, which is one of the top rheumatologists who has worked with a top team in France, in Paris.
Mhm.
So when I went to him last year, um, he actually said, I'm not surprised that after your first vaccine of COVID-19, that you have this has arisen within your body. He's had many people go to him after the COVID vaccine that have actually now officially been diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Wow. I've heard so many stories from people all over the world how after they got a vaccine that either their MS or fibro or some other kind of a chronic disease spiked during that 4-year period, 5-year period of COVID. It's just crazy to hear people talk about that.
Yes, it is. It's very, 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 very crazy. And I know a lot of people that the COVID vaccine has affected in a bad way with their MS or fibro or anything else that they've got.
Hmm.
But my pain level rose to the point where it was making me cry and not even be able to get out of bed. So I wanted to be able to function for my kids and for myself.
Hmm.
So I had to just push on and push through the pain. I have got a good pain threshold, but there comes a time where the pain just does get too much
Yeah.
and it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, I can't even imagine going through a dual diagnosis of because I know what the MS pain feels like, and I can't imagine having fibro on top of the MS, Katie. It's just got to be god awful. And it just to hear how you handle it and the way you talk about it and the way you keep on pushing on, it is just it's hard to do. I mean, chronic diseases are a mental drain. And people just don't understand that, because they look at you and they look at me and they see, two people that look pretty normal, on the outside, they look pretty normal, but they don't understand what's going on the inside. And I know that that's what we're trying to do, me and you together, just to spread the awareness about what it's like living with a chronic disease, just to understand this a little bit better.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's something that needs to be pushed out there a lot more. There needs to be a lot of more education in different chronic illnesses. And I think there needs to be more understanding and more explaining from medical professionals as also. Because, I wasn't sent home with no leaflet on MS or fibro.
Hmm.
So I had nothing to read up on. I just took myself to Google, which we shouldn't do.
Right.
Um, but I had no choice. I had no one else I had nothing to explain it and what causes it or anything.
No, yeah, and Katie, when I was diagnosed in '97, it was the same way, and it hasn't gotten that much better. And we're in 2025, and that's like the sad part about it. Is it is people are they don't understand. They just don't understand what it's like living with this disease and how hard it is on a family member. I mean, you got a husband and kids. How do they even understand the disease? Because I know that that it's a life changer for a family too. So how did your family understand the diagnosis of MS and then the diagnosis of fibro after that?
With my family, I think my parents and my other members understood a lot about MS, obviously, because my old neighbor when I was a kid.
Hmm.
But they didn't know to the extent of what it involves and what it can do. So, I mean, they was very, very supportive. They still are. My kids didn't understand it as much as I tried to explain it. They was younger at the time, so it was quite difficult for them.
Hmm.
My husband didn't know nothing about MS at all, so he'd done a lot of research himself online.
Hmm.
So it was quite difficult for the family and my partner to accept I had this, long-term incurable disease for the rest of my life that won't get any better.
Right.
So it was very difficult for them, but they have been there for me, and I can really, I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky to have the support that I have. But there's obviously always some people, whether it be family or friends, that don't understand the extent of what it does to someone, and they just expect you to just, want you to exercise every day in the gym and really push yourself to the maximum and not stop work and continue. And unfortunately, it's very difficult for people to understand the extent of pain that you're in 24 hours a day, and that every day is different for us and it can change from minute to minute. So it's very difficult like that to explain to them how hard it is for someone living with chronic illnesses.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's a strain on family members. I know that when my kids were young, I actually, just to get them involved with understanding my MS, at a young age, like 3 or 4 years old, when I used to do the Copaxone shot, and they would actually push the plunger for me, just to so that they understood, hey, dad has to take a medication every day. And I kind of just broke them into my MS that way. And, it was hard to talk to them even as they got older, because it was hard to explain to a little 10-year-old or 11-year-old, what dad was going through, the pain. And and people just don't understand that either. That it's a family condition. It's not just an individual condition. Yeah, we're the ones going through the disease, but it affects everybody around us, and we just we want them to understand.
Yes, and I totally agree. And my kids help me out when I need, help at home, or they're very understanding. They're very good. They're very kind and caring. They worry a hell of a lot about me, which is understandable. But I reassure them all the time that, I'm fine. I'm going to have my bad days and I'm going to have my good days, and they get that and they understand. So I'm very grateful for them and my husband and my parents and other members of my family.
What kind of DMT did they put you on when you got diagnosed? Did they get you on one right away? And how did you do well on them if they did get you on one?
Yeah, they got me on a DMT a week later after my diagnosis, and it was a tablet a day. It was called Abigio.
Yeah, okay, I see
Um,
that one.
yeah, I was put on that. I was on it for about a year, and I relapsed within the year. So she decided to change me to Tisabri, which is an infusion once a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was on that for maybe 3 months. It made me so, so ill. I was vomiting constantly, in bed constantly, felt like a zombie, big stomach issues. So I decided to stop that myself. And I decided to take a break off of medication because my body was just wrecked. And they supported my decision. I was off medication for maybe 5, 6 months, and I went for my yearly MRI,
Mm-hmm.
and a new lesion popped up on my brain that was active. So they advised me to get back on treatment again. So I decided to go on Copaxone, which I had to inject 3 times a week.
Okay.
I was on that for a year and a half, and it didn't work for me. It caused another relapse and another new lesion on my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So then they asked if I wanted to go on to Kesimpta or Ocrevus or Mavenclad,
Mm-hmm.
and I chose Kesimpta. So I've been on Kesimpta for the last 2 years now.
How's your body reacting to that one?
Very difficult on the first dosage, which I was vomiting most of the night, and the fever and chills and sore skin.
Mm.
It caused my blood pressure to drop, and I suffer with blood pressure anyway. So that was a tough one to get through.
Mm.
But after the first couple of months, it started to get better. And I've been on it and it's fine. But I mean, I've had stomach issues on it about 4 months ago, which caused me to have inflammation in my stomach. So I was in a lot of pain and burning sensation from the inside. and it was just a month of a bad reaction to it. They don't know why, but it can happen.
Yeah. Wow, man. It's just, and that's just another part, Katie, that just people just don't see that part. You know, they only see you when they see you out. They might see you out for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever, whenever you're out and about. They don't see everything that you're going through at home, you know, after that infusion, all the pain that you're going through. And that's the part that I just think people need to understand, you know, that it is not just, okay, you get diagnosed, here's your med, and go ahead and live the rest of your life and everything will be fine. I mean, it is a journey, and it is a, you know, sometimes it is a really, really rough journey. And it just sounds like you've had a lot of rough moments, and you just push through it. And it's just, and that's what I try to, you know, explain to people. It's going to be hard, and you're going to feel like it's not going to get any better ever, ever. But you got to keep on pushing on, and you got to find the reasons to keep pushing on. And you found, you know, you got your family, your husband, your kids, and that's kind of what I used as my motivation. You know, I used my family, I used my job. You know, when I was working, I'm like, okay, I want to keep on working, and I pushed myself as hard as I could. But people don't see that. You know, they don't see the pain on the inside that we're going through to just to make it through a day.
No, they don't. And that's the frustrating part. And it's why I decided to use my platforms and my social media to my advantage to share parts of my journey and make people understand of how it affects us and how it affects me. And we're all different with medication. And as they say, the MS is a snowflake disease. It's different for everybody and everyone's different with it. And it's the same for medication. No one's the same on medication, and it's difficult for people to get that and understand that part of it.
Mm. Yep, absolutely. I mean, you just gave a perfect example. You did Copaxone, and you did really bad on it, and I did Copaxone for 15 years, and that was my best DMT. So I mean, it's a journey. It's everybody's different. But I think if we all come together and we all talk about our journeys, that would help people just to understand it a little bit better. That there's no one path to this MS, and even fibro. You know, because and that's another thing, that you get diagnosed with MS, life is still going to go on, you know, and you're going to go through other diagnoses too. I got a back problems. I've had 4 spine surgeries. You got fibromyalgia. I mean, MS doesn't care that you're getting diagnosed with something else. It's still going to do what it wants to do. So it's a journey. The whole experience after diagnosis is just a journey.
Yeah, it is. It is a journey, and it's a very difficult journey. And mentally, you're up and down anyway with the mental health, and your MS is up and down constantly anyway. You can have a good few days, and then all of a sudden, you'll wake up and you'll be difficult to get out of bed and just function from day to day and do the most simplest things like washing or washing the kitchen side and cleaning everything down. It is physically and mentally draining a lot of the time. But I think with me meeting so many people on TikTok and Instagram, it's just given me a massive boost of what I've achieved so far since being on social media and the interviews that I've done with certain people on lives. And it's really pushed me on to continue and do what I do.
I love it. I love it, Katie. And I love what you do. I mean, I've sat in on some of your lives, you know, just in the comments section, and yeah, I absolutely love what you do on TikTok. Just spreading the awareness about fibro and MS, and it's an awesome community. And I found you on TikTok, and you know, just to get people to understand, and we're trying to help people to understand this disease because it is so different for everybody. And I just love what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for liking what I do. I appreciate messages that I receive on a daily basis to say thank you for everything that I do. And for me, in my eyes, I don't do much. I just go live and we chat about MS and I support others as much as I can.
Right.
But it's nice to see that what I do is making an impact on other people.
Absolutely. You know, and there's people all over the world that I have met. I know we have some common friends. We talk about Swab all the time. He's another MSer that actually lost his ability to talk. MS took his voice, and people don't understand that. You know, and Swab can't talk about it, but he still does his videos, just trying to explain his journey. And, that's what this community's about. I mean, we all have to come together just to spread the awareness to get people to understand what this thing can do to your life.
Yeah, I mean, I know Swab really, really well, and I've known him for 2 years now, and I love him to bits, and I will always be there for him to support him. I've supported him from the beginning in getting his voice back, so to speak, via an iPad and a software
Hmm.
that I managed to push and get for free for him, just by sending emails out to a company and just persisting with it for a whole weekend.
Hmm.
And I managed to get it for him, and I'm happy that he can now communicate with his son and his wife.
Yeah, it's awesome, and like I said, I mean, people just don't get that. They don't understand that MS can take your voice, literally take your voice, we just need to let people understand that. I've told Swab, I'm your voice, dude. I know you lost yours, but I'm going to talk about you as much as I can because people need to know about you and know what you're about, and I know Katie, you're like that too. I mean, people we just need to all come together, and that's what this community's about.
Yeah, and I think supporting each other is the most important thing, and just being there for one another to listen and not judge is one of the best things you can do. And kindness goes so far, and it means a lot to people. So yeah, I mean it's really really important. And as I said for Swab, it's I will always be there for him to support him, and I'm hoping to try and meet him this year also. So I'm looking forward to that.
God, that would be so awesome. I got to see pictures of you and him together. That would be just so awesome, Katie. I've told Swab too. That's one of my bucket list things is I want to come over to England and meet that guy. I mean, he's just such an inspiration. How he is fighting the fight, and his wife has MS too, and she's another warrior, and they are just awesome people, and I really do. I want to meet them too.
Yeah, and I appreciate him as well, and it is just an amazing inspiration. He's just an inspiration to so many people, and he doesn't think that, but it's so true, and everyone says it to him. And I think he just battles on, and I can't even imagine what it's like for him not being able to walk, to talk. It must be very, very frustrating, and he's got a lot of courage.
He does. He does. I tell him all the time he is a badass, and he's my inspiration. That he's one of the reasons I get up and fight every day. I'm like, I'm doing this for the Swab. I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it for him. And I'm doing these recordings for him. Because he needs a voice, and I want to be his voice.
Yeah, and
Katie,
yeah, I think it's great what you do.
I
Seriously, it's fantastic.
I appreciate you. If anybody wants to get a hold of you on TikTok, how can they find you? And I'll put that in the description in the podcast link, but we can just get it recorded.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you just type in the search bar Katie MS plus Fibro Journey, you will find me.
Uh, she is just an awesome, awesome lady to talk to. Just about just managing this disease. Your attitude is amazing, and I try to tell people that a lot of this disease, the fight, it's a mental battle and it's an attitude. You just got to say, you know what, screw you, MS. I'm not going to let you take me out. I'm going to keep on fighting and use whatever motivation you can to wake up every day and keep on pushing.
Yeah, and I think that, I'm really pushing myself right now. I'm in the just started writing a book that I want to get published as well. And I've just released some merch that represents Chronic Illness Warriors, the logo that I designed and the name of it as well. So I'm really pushing myself now, and I enjoy doing what I do. I can no longer work, so this is like a job for me, and I love doing what I do.
Amen, Katie. I'm the exact same way. 26 years I worked with MS and I can't do it anymore, but this is what this is my job. This is what I strive to do every day. I wake up in the morning and I can't wait to talk to somebody from anywhere all over the world just about their journey to spread awareness because it's not a US problem, and it's not a Canada problem, and it's not a UK problem. I mean, this is all over the world, and the common story that I hear from everybody that I talk to, from all over the world is people just don't understand. They don't understand what I'm going through. They don't get it. And I just wish that they did. And that it's not, it's a world problem. And that's why I'm doing this. I want everybody just to listen wherever you're at. It doesn't matter where you're at. Just listen.
Yeah, listening is so important, and for anyone that listens to this that hasn't got MS or they've got a family member, please just listen and be patient and just be there for them and support them. And just don't get sucked into all these scams of, do a parasite cleanse and it will cure you, or parasites cause MS. It's just scammers that just want to take your money and give you false hope. So please don't be sucked into that kind of world. It's just there is no cure out there for us, and as much as we wish there was, there isn't, and that's the reality of it.
No, absolutely. I mean, we can look for things to try to improve, but there's a lot of people out there that are just trying to make money off of our disability, and it's a sad thing. And you just got to be really, really diligent and do your research and be really smart.
Yes, very smart, and listen to the ones that actually live with it, that actually know about the scams. Um, I've had people say to me before, this parasites cause MS, so you need to do a parasite cleanse. It's just crazy stuff that's put out there. And even on TikTok and social media, there was a lady that was classing herself as an actual doctor, and she actually wasn't. And she had maybe 200,000 followers. And she was scamming people by doing an 8-step program to cure MS. And she actually said she had MS, and it was just crazy.
Wow.
And lots of the community called her out on it, and I duetted her video and called her out on it. And she was just blocking people because she knew that she was taking people's money and conning people and actually presenting herself as having MS herself and saying that she can cure you with an 8-step program. It's just ridiculous that TikTok allows these people on these platforms to scam people after so many people reporting her profile.
Wow, that is just crazy, and it's just sad. It's sad, and though the people they take advantage of people with chronic disease. It's just sad all over the world.
Yes, it is. It is very sad. And as you say, it is a worldwide problem with MS. And, it people that are vulnerable and don't know much about MS get sucked into it easily, and they'll quite happily pay out hundreds and hundreds of pounds or dollars to try and get a cure for themselves. And that isn't going to work.
Yeah, I agree. Katie, what if you wanted to say one more thing to anybody out there that's listening that's in a similar boat that we're in, with MS, we've been battling it for a few years, or just they're newly diagnosed. What would your message be to them in fighting this disease?
I think that, you know, please don't feel alone. Reach out to people on social media, get yourself into a community, build relationships with people that have got the same thing as ourselves, and to never give up hope and to never give up your fight and to keep going and just be ambitious with it. We might have MS, but MS hasn't got us, and use it as your superpower to turn your pain into power and achieve many things, and just spread awareness as much as they can. But just mainly don't feel alone. Just reach out to someone.
God, I love it, Kate. I love it. And that is just so important, finding a community. I can't agree with you anymore. I want to thank you so much for coming on with me, just share your journey. I really appreciate you, Katie. I would love to have you on again in the future just to help spread awareness. We could come on and talk about whatever you would want to about MS or fibro. You are always welcome on my podcast. I really appreciate you. I know I made another friend over there in France. You're my first France podcast. I've been over to the UK a couple of times in Norway, but I have not been to France yet. So you are my first France. I'm excited about that.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you for asking me to be on here. And I'm happy to do another one in the future, as long as it's getting out there and spreading awareness and educating people. And I think a lot of medical professionals need to listen to podcasts like this as well, to listen to the actual ones that are living with it, and understand it a bit more.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that medical professionals should be listening to us a little bit more. I totally agree with that, Katie. Thank you so much, Katie,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you. You can follow me on TikTok, MS Michigan Man 64. I am also on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64. And you can find me on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you are listening on. MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.